So world systems are characterized by the existence of cycles, and we can discern long economic cycles synchronized with political, social, and ideological evolutions. How can we delimit temporal frames of world systems? Of course, archaeology and text provide tools for trade and cultural exchanges and their significance. And they also shed light on the political constructions and the development of cities. And the number and size of cities, as well as the rise and fall of these cities, serve as useful indicators of economic activity, level of interconnectedness between regions, and transformations in the systems. Chandler's calculations of the population of the 25 largest cities have been updated by Modelsky in 2003 and Morris in 2013. I have suggested time frames for possible world systems of the Bronze Age and the Iron Age in two articles published in 2010 and 2011. And here are the limitations proposed for the Western world system, Chinese world system, and Indian world system, so for the Iron Age. In this period, I have shown that all regions did not follow the same path on the one hand, and that some areas were directly influenced, positively or negatively, by the extension of dominant cores on the other. So I see three different world systems in the first millennium BC. Here they are for the end of this millennium. And they will finally be united at the beginning of the Christian era and formed a unique Afro-Eurasian world system. This system developed at a progressive rate with an increasing integration of its different parts and through 4 long cycles that can be represented as 4 ascending waves on an upward curve from the 4th to the 6th century for the first cycle, 6th to the 10th, here is the map, 10th to the 9th, 3rd cycle from the 10th to the 14th century, and here I have 2 maps because we have a large amount of restructuring following notably the Mongol expansion in the 13th century. And the 4th cycle was between the 14th century and the 17th century. And here is the map for the 15th century. So for each period, internal and external driving forces for change were fundamentally intertwined. And I believe that their combination is fully part of the movement and logic of the system. Advances in agriculture marked each ascendant phase. Agricultural progress was sometimes induced by demographic pressure. Increases in agricultural output were also often linked to favorable climate changes. And this in turn led to a rise in population and the growth of cities, as well as craft activity. Long-distance commercial and cultural exchanges played a crucial systemic role by favoring a growing division of labor, both within the interconnected societies and between these societies. It also favored processes of state building and technological and institutional innovations. And innovations in turn led to a rise in production, trade, and social complexity. Thus, we usually observe a combination of Smithian and Schumpeterian growth, and these periods of what Jack Goldstone has termed efflorescence, so growth per capita in the main cores. Each ascendant phase was accompanied by the rise of empires, whose investments in public works often contributed to economic growth, at least in the early stages. However, a set of interconnected factors regularly caused a reversal, it's on this side, a reversal in the cycle, due to the surextension of empires, state-sponsored wars that interrupted investment in the productive sector, excessive taxation, political struggles, and so on. More generally, increasing economic and socio-political complexity goes along with higher costs, and every society finally reaches a point of declining marginal returns unless new organizational or technical solutions are found, but they only push back the deadline. Complexity then becomes less attractive, and a process of disintegration is initiated. We can refer here, of course, to the work published by Temporal in 1988. Phenomena of capital decentralization in the ancient and modern world systems may have played a significant role in the shift of center of accumulation. The decrease in resources, wood and metals, was also responsible for higher production costs, higher transport costs, and lower investment. Moreover, Malthus has shown that population tended to grow quicker than agricultural production. The demographic growth that accompanied the periods of economic progress, in the end, created social tensions and environmental problems, which in turn led to a decrease in production and an increase in the cost of production. World systems are socio-ecological systems, and first of all, environmental disruptions and the cycles themselves might be linked to climate changes, connected to cycles in solar activity, low solar activity being associated with phases of global cooling. So I try to list here the solar minima, the estimated periods for these minima, and the periods for reconstructed temperature minima. I'm still working on this data. Same for solar maxima and periods for reconstructed temperature maxima. And I use notably these curves. It's from an article from Michael Mann, I believe published in 2008. Falls of temperature, which occurred at different periods, induced various changes in the regions concerned, aridification or wetter conditions. And each society, of course, reacted in a different way to the environmental transformations. It's noteworthy that the global cooling between around 1450 and 1475 did not lead to a large recession in the world system, even though it did affect Ming China, India, and Egypt, and played a role in the collapse of the Great Zimbabwe state in southern Africa. So it seems that the growth of the system and the forces of integration were strong enough during this period to enable the system to resist. Recessions were first drawn out, first of all from the 3rd to the 6th centuries, then from the 8th to the 10th centuries, and then they became briefer, around 70 years during the 14th century, and less than 60 years during the 17th century. And this shortening of the phases of recession probably reflects greater integration and ever-increasing acceleration forces in the world system. The recessions did not affect all parts of the system to the same degree, either because of the partial integration of certain subsystems, or, more often, because of particular local or regional conditions. India and Southeast Asia most notably appear to occur sometimes out of sync with the rest of the world system. And for Southeast Asia, the asynchrony also appears to be tied up to the pace of China, which often moved ahead of the rest of the system. In times of recession, the world system did not disappear, but underwent a phase in which its networks were restructured and as were its implicated states and their societies. The phases of decline of the system were marked by the disintegration of empires and an increase of internal conflicts and wars. The weakening of the centers often favored changes in the hierarchy of the system, with sometimes the emergence of strong states in semi-peripheries. In sum, we see that a set of forces working together produced a pulsation in the system with an upward movement in the curve. But we see today that this rising curve cannot be infinite. Demographic and ecological pressures, as well as the exhaustion of resources, notably fossil fuels, despite the temporary relief brought back by the fracking technique, may in the near future mark the upper limits of growth in this system for this particular phase of it,